NVIDIA just reported its second quarter 2023 earnings, and the stock price has shot up 8% in after hours. In this video, I will go over NVIDIA's latest earnings and then do my own analysis of the company, which will include NVIDIA's current valuation, analysis of the most important metrics, and a discounted cash flow analysis. I will also show you my brokerage account in real time, without any fancy spreadsheets or gimmicks, my own NVIDIA investment, and what I plan to do with my position. This video will be full of information, so let's get right into it. What's up, strangers? Welcome to the Wealth Game Nation. My name is Vedo, and I'm here to help you better understand the wealth game and become part of the Wealth Game Nation. As you can see, this is my own brokerage account. But before we dive into the specifics, I gotta make one thing crystal clear. I may have an opinion on a stock, but that's still an opinion and not financial advice. So don't you go investing based on my blabbering. This is all for entertainment and educational purposes only, and when it comes to investing, no matter what anybody says or does, you've gotta do your own research. Back to my brokerage account. As you can see, my current portfolio balance is around 95,000 euros. I have invested in 18 different products, 14 of those are individual companies, and 4 of them are in ETFs. If I go down and order them by market value, we can see that NVIDIA is my highest position. I have around 14,000 euros in NVIDIA and around 7,000 in gains. This makes me around 100% up on my position, which is absolutely nice to see. This makes NVIDIA around 15% of my portfolio. If I expand here, I can see that I bought NVIDIA first in December of 2021, so I bought it at all times high. I bought it when I was very new to investing. Initially, I invested 5,000 euros. End of 2022, when NVIDIA was massively down with the rest of the tech companies, I added an additional 2,000 euros in order to get a better average price, as I thought that the sell-off in 2022 was way too much. If you want a full review of my portfolio, go check out my portfolio reveal video, the link is in the description of this video. This article by CNBC reports that NVIDIA tops estimates and says that sales will jump 170% this quarter, driven by demand for AI chips. So in the hype of the AI frenzy, NVIDIA is leading the charge. Further down in the article, it says that NVIDIA shares climbed 8% in extended trading on Wednesday after the chip maker beats estimates for the second quarter and issued optimistic guidance for the current period. NVIDIA reported $2.7 per share in earnings versus 2.09 per share expected. On the revenue side, NVIDIA reported 13.51 billion versus 11.22 billion expected. These are massive outperformances. It also says that NVIDIA expects third quarter revenue to be about 16 billion, which is also a lot higher than the 12.61 billion forecasted by analysts. Now, this is a crazy pace. Net income jumped to 6.19 billion from 656 million a year ago. The net income or profit is up 10 times from a year ago. This is massive. Now remember the following two numbers because we will need them in our analysis later. EPS of 2.70 per share and net income of 6.2 billion. Last thing from this article is about share buybacks. To me, share buybacks and share outstandings are a very important metric, and I believe that investors do not pay enough attention to this metric. NVIDIA said its board of directors authorized 25 billion in share buybacks. It said it had purchased 3.28 billion in shares during this quarter. So I did some math. NVIDIA is over $1 trillion in market cap. A share buyback program of 2.2% is significant, especially for NVIDIA, because over the past years, NVIDIA didn't do much share buybacks, and I will show you that in a moment. Now let's do some fundamental analysis, and then we will do the valuation of NVIDIA. This tool you see here is called StockUnlock. I'm not affiliated with this tool, it's just a service I like to use, and I like the guys who are building this. Up here we can see that NVIDIA has a 3.2 inside score on a scale of 5. So this is average, nothing special to see here. If you look at the stock price over the 5 years, NVIDIA is up massively. Somebody who has invested in 2019 and has held their shares till now would be up 12 times their money. On the right side, it reads that market cap is over 1 trillion, earnings per share are 1.92. This is not up to date because we saw the earnings per share are 2.7. As I said, remember 2.7 in earnings per share and 6.1 billion in net income. Then we look at the valuation. Trailing PE of 235 is absolute madness. Net income from a year ago was 500 million. That's why the current price, looking for the 12 past months, is so expensive. Looking forward, the PE is 50. That means that investors are willing to pay $50 for every dollar of net income of NVIDIA. Again, looks massively expensive. Free cash flow metric, so anything around free cash flow is the best metric in my opinion to look at. So the price to free cash flow is around 221. which translates to a yield of 0.45. And 0.45 you get by taking 100 and dividing by the price of free cash flow, which is 221. Free cash flow of 0.45 is ridiculously low. Bonds are currently yielding around 4%, and they are considered risk-free. NVIDIA is considered very risky, and it's yielding less than 0.5. So on a price to earnings ratio, on a price to free cash flow ratio, NVIDIA looks extremely expensive. Now let's go to the freeform tool and let's look at some other metrics. The metrics we will be looking at is revenue, then we will look at net income, then price to earnings, which is derived from the net income, then free cash flow, then price to free cash flow, which is derived from the free cash flow. Then we look at the stock price, shares outstanding, and the EPS. I know it's quite a lot of metrics, but don't worry, I will group them and it will make sense in a moment. Then we will look at the time period over the last 10 years. And if you scroll down to the table, we can see that NVIDIA's stock price has been growing by around 60% compound annual growth rate. This is massive outperformance of anything out there, especially comparing it to a benchmark like an S&P 500. NVIDIA's revenue is growing at 19%, a third compared to its stock price. If you look at the net income and free cash flow, I like to group them together because I believe both of them are good indicators of the profitability of NVIDIA. Both of them are growing annually by 23 and 22%. This is higher than the revenue. That means that the conversion from the revenue to the net income is very good. Then we look at the two price ratios, which is price to earnings and price to free cash flow. Both of them are compounded annually around 29 and 30%, which is double the stock price. Lastly, we see that NVIDIA has around 2.5 billion in shares outstanding, and that on an annual basis they haven't done much. Basically, the shares have been flat over the last 10 years. That's why the information that NVIDIA announced a share buyback program of 2.2% or 25 billion is significant. This does not mean that they will not dilute the shareholders by creating more shares through stock-based compensation, which we know that high-tech companies like to do. Lastly, we look at the EPS. Earnings per share are currently 1.92 in this tool because it doesn't have the latest data as NVIDIA just reported the earnings, but we saw in the article by CNBC that NVIDIA has reported $2.7 per share. And I told you, remember, $2.7 per share as well as 6.1 billion in net income. All of this, what we have seen so far, does not warrant such a high valuation. So why does NVIDIA keep climbing? Looking at this table and these metrics, we can see that NVIDIA's price is outpacing the fundamentals. Now let's look at the valuation by using the discounted cash flow analysis. I will let the data autofill and I will use earnings. I will also use 3 years projection and I will tell you in a moment why, and leave everything else the way it is. Looking at the data which is in the system and looking at the discounted cash flow analysis based on this data, it says here the fair value of NVIDIA is $144. This is 69% lower than the current price. None of this makes sense. All of this indicates that NVIDIA is massively overpriced. Since we saw that NVIDIA latest earnings was 6.1 billion, and I plug this data in, we see that NVIDIA is still overpriced by 61%. Where does the hype come from? Where does all this optimism for NVIDIA come from? I was digging into this a little before, and I think I found out the reason why. This article is a fresh article by Forbes, which came out shortly before NVIDIA announced its second quarter 2023 earnings. And in this article, it says that the company is expected to earn $10.04 per share in 2025. I think this is the reason. Let me explain why. We saw that NVIDIA reported $2.7 per share in earnings. They are projecting $10 per earning in 3 years. We also saw that NVIDIA has 2.5 billion in shares. If we assume that the share count is going to stay the same, and we assume that NVIDIA is going to hit this target of $10 per share in 2025, we do some simple math and multiply the number of shares outstanding, which is 2.5 billion, times $10 a share in 2025, which would bring us to total earnings of 25 billion in 2025. Now we go back to the discount cash flow analysis and we plug in this data. I'll leave everything as it was before. The only thing I need to do is adapt the metrics growth rate. So I did the calculation before. So the metric growth rate for the earnings would need to be 60% in order for NVIDIA to hit 25 billion in earnings by 2025. Or let's call it first quarter 2026. So there we see, this would mean annual growth rate of 60%. When I plug this data in, I see that the fair price of NVIDIA is $600 or 28% over the current price, not including the 8% after hours because it's still not updated. I believe this is the reason why NVIDIA is rallying so much and why investors are clinging onto NVIDIA so much. So all the other big tech companies like Microsoft, Google, Meta, Apple, Amazon, all of them are barely growing this year. I did analysis, they're growing single digits, for example, in revenue. Apple is not even growing this year in revenue. On the other hand, we have NVIDIA growing silly by 88% in revenue, projecting to grow 60% year over year in earnings. That is what my analysis of NVIDIA shows. In conclusion, I would like to say that for me, NVIDIA is a relatively high conviction position. So looking at the current and the past metrics, NVIDIA looks ridiculously overpriced. But looking at NVIDIA's projection for the next 3 years, I can't believe I'm about to say it, but if they deliver what they're promising, it looks fairly priced. And in order to reach what they're promising, they will need to execute perfectly. And in the past, they have shown that they can do it, so let's see. I'm not going to sell any of my share. I will just hold on to the shares that I have and check on them from quarter to quarter to see that they're delivering on what they're promising. However, I will also not be buying any more shares. As you saw, it is around 15% of my current stock portfolio. And that makes it, for me at least, very risky, as there is too much expectation and too much baked into the price of NVIDIA at the moment. I will just hodl, as my crypto bros say. Why? Because I got diamond hands here and I cannot bring myself to sell as long as they keep delivering on their promise. So there you have it. That was my NVIDIA stock analysis. If you found this video helpful, please click that like button, subscribe to the channel and share it with your friends. Now, you tell me, what do you think about NVIDIA's valuation? Do you think they can deliver on their promise? That's it for me. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed it and I'll see you in my next video. All the other big tech companies, Apple, Microsoft, Google. Ne može. I'll come in a second. Okay, I'm coming. Best wife in the world. Where was I?